There are skills in MMA, 3 in particular, that if you have them, you are just levels above the competition. But most people tend to overlook them. Why? Because they're just not as flashy as fast hands or spin kicks or big knockouts. But if you're an aspiring fighter, or even if you're just watching fights, and you're not recognizing these 3 things that we're going to talk about in today's video, then you're undoubtedly just falling behind, because the sport of MMA is evolving, and these are the 3 that stand out to me the most. Now, the clips that you just watched, that was of Maritza Sanchez. And if you're not a fan of her or Combate Global, I promise that by the end of this video, you will be, because she is a true mixed martial artist that is implementing these 3 skills, which are cage wrestling, the Muay Thai clinch, and we'll call it calf kicks, even though it's much deeper than that. But that's the buzzword these days, right? It's changing the game, calf kicks. We're going to talk about that, and specifically range management. Now, this first was really highlighted to me about 7 years ago when this young 17-year-old kid came up to me at these MMA fights, and he goes, "Shane, big fan, man. I'm an aspiring fighter. I'd love to train with you someday." I'm like, "Oh, sick, great to meet you, dude," right? So a couple weeks pass, and he hits me up, and he sends me videos of him and his homeboys training in their backyard. And I'm like, damn, this kid's legit. He's going for it, right? So I send him some boxing gloves, some shin guards for him and his boys. He hits me up and he's like, "Hey, I just spoke with my parents and they're cool if I fly out and train with you for a week. Would that be okay?" And I was like, "Well, I got to talk that over with my wife first." I go, "Marie, this stranger from the internet wants to live with us for a week and train. Is that okay?" And kid comes out. Before we do any training, I was like, let's do a little experiment here. Let's see where your IQ is at, how well-rounded you are. We're gonna bring out Vince the Anonly Cachero, who's on the brink of getting into the UFC at this point, and you guys are gonna do a friendly technical spar for 5 minutes. The bell goes off and it goes as expected, right? Someone who has no competition experience against someone who's about to enter the uppermost echelon of combat sports. But it was those 3 things that Vince was able to implement effortlessly. It was the calf kicks or low kicks to control movements and encourage Evan to move a certain way, basically ring generalship, so that he could seamlessly enter into the clinch. And once he was there, he was able to establish control so that he could land strikes or get the takedown if he so chose, and just establish dominance. If you can control the outside range, the clinch range, and the wrestling, you take away or at least severely lessen the puncher's chance or your opponent's ability to rely on attributes like strength or power or speed or endurance by simply relying on high IQ, technique, and leverage. So let's take a look at some footage of Combate Global bantamweight Maritza Sanchez, who fights tonight. You can tune in live, digitally, worldwide, and free of charge in both English and Spanish on their YouTube channels, beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The links are down below. Now let's take a look at those calf kicks and her striking in general, because it is beautiful to watch. Why are calf kicks changing the game? How are they changing the game? And is that even fair to say? I would argue that yes, the calf kick is in fact changing the game, because people right now, most fighters are favoring a bladed stance so that they can have better boxing and maneuverability to defend a takedown, right? 2 things, a single punch or a single takedown, that could change a fight instantly. Therefore, they don't have enough respect for the calf kick. But now that it's gaining popularity, people are changing their stance from more bladed to being a little more squared so that they can, in fact, check that kick. Therefore, yeah, their priorities, their preferences, their styles are changing, and we're starting to see that more and more. But the thing that Maritza Sanchez does that's just absolutely spectacular is her ability to create angles and the timing of that calf kick so that her opponents don't even have a chance to check it. Watch this. Notice how she's never standing directly in front of her opponent. She seamlessly switches from orthodox to southpaw, cutting to her right or cutting to her left. As her opponents step in and are heavy on that lead leg, she finds the perfect time and perfect angle to smash that calf. And it only takes 1 or 2 calf kicks before their agility starts to dwindle away. Therefore, they're less mobile on their feet, making it easier for Maritza to pressure and cut off the ring. Now she's got them close to the cage. Now she can start to let other strikes go. But now she's got them up against the cage, and as she's starting to mix up her strikes, more times than not, they end up in the clinch. Now this is super important, so let's take a closer look. So the reason I'm referring to this as the Muay Thai clinch and not just the clinch in general is simply just because of the strikes that are involved. I've got elbows, I've got knees, and I've got dirty boxing. But even more than that is the positional control. So let's just go through some terminology. I've got underhooks where my arm is underneath Bob's armpit. I've got overhooks where I'm hiking him up or posting and pushing him away. I've got collar ties where I'm breaking his posture and pulling him into strikes. But then I've also got a little bit more. I've got wrist control and I've got bicep control. So let's say Bob's got a collar tie and he's pulling on my head. I can push on his bicep to clear that arm. Or I can open up and pull it away and follow up with a strike, which then opens up a better position for me. And if you watch Maritza, you can see that she's implementing all of this, constantly chipping away at the body with knees, controlling the arms and the head to land elbow strikes, racking up points, and again, just chipping away at her opponents. They start to get into this mode where they want to hug, where they want to squeeze and they want to get close. And that's perfect. Notice how she reaches from the backside, hooking that arm, turning her opponent into a one-armed fighter. Now at this point, the more she struggles, the more energy she's going to burn as Maritza just continues to rack up points. Now this is a great transition because one of the things that Maritza does perfectly is she uses her head as a tool and she looks through the neck like a pane of glass. So to quote Coach Bob Peach, who I think is one of the best MMA coaches in the world, he always says, look through their neck, look through their neck. And people will inevitably go like this. And he goes, where's their neck? And they go right here and he goes, then look through the neck. And what that does is lift the chin up. And I love it because if you watch this clip of Maritza, if her opponent has better head positioning, she'll take her hand, push the head out of the way, and replace it with her own. Now she's got in a good position. She can chip away with her punches, with her knees, with her elbows, or get the takedown. And what you'll often do is suck out the leg, suck out the hips, and drag them down to the floor. And if you remember earlier in this video, Vince used this against Evan. And Evan said, you felt so strong in the clinch, you were able to just rip my leg out and take me down. He goes, no, it wasn't power. I didn't use or waste any energy. I relied on leverage.
First impressions, what do you feel?
Tired? Yeah. You're a lot stronger once we tied up and over under. I didn't think that you reached for our legs like you did. And you did. You get hooks in on just on one leg. You had way more power than I thought you would.
A lot of that is leverage. If I have you, let's say we got this over unders, right? My hips are lower than yours. I've got pressure against you in the cage. Ideally, I want my head here, but I collected this leg.
That right there.
All right, so immediately, see how your hips shifted?
Yeah.
That starts pulling you off balance. If I have control here, all I gotta do is just sink my hips and drop, and you're gonna go down.
With you?
Less about power, it's more about leverage. I'm taking you to a base that you don't have, and that's the reason you're gonna fall down.
And again, another skill that Maritza Sanchez has that just makes her an elite level MMA athlete. So how do you shut down that bladed stance? By chopping the calf. And if they're standing in a squared Muay Thai stance, you box them up. Who just lost their title this past weekend who tend to stand very squared and favor the calf kicks? I'm just saying. But when it comes to Maritza, she's always switching her stance, cutting angles, changing the range because she wants her opponent to follow her lead. She's also not afraid to back up. What does your opponent have to do in order to close the distance? Step forward, and as they do, they're heavy on that lead leg. That's when she smashes the calf. Inevitably, the fight's going to end up in the clinch, and as it does, she's going to break posture. She's going to start to chip away with her strikes. And if she so chooses to take the fight to the ground, she's going to get in a dominant position, and she's no stranger to finishing fights via ground and pound. And look, maybe you're not a 17-year-old aspiring MMA fighter like Evan was, which by the way, Evan's now a full-time coach and manager down at a gym in Nashville, Tennessee. He's got a team of fighters absolutely crushing it. Let's say you're just a casual fan who likes tuning in to watch the MMA fights. At least now when you're tuned in to Combate Global, Combate Female tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time live on their YouTube channel. When you're watching with all your buddies, you can point out the little intricate, nuanced details like head positioning, wrist control, smashing that calf when they're in a bladed stance. You'll be able to call things happening before they even happen. Your buddies will be like, yo, I didn't know you were into it like this. And you can say, oh yeah, you didn't know that? Yeah, I got the educated eye. What's up? And then you become the life of the party. You're welcome.